Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So today is another series, or beginning of another series, on a Squier upgrade. This is a Squier Affinity Strat, and it's the one that I chose after my last series where I upgraded a Bullet Strat. This one is a tremolo model, and it's a 2007 Indonesia model. I've got several upgrades planned for it. We're going to get away from this humbucker single or HSS configuration. I'm going to do a headstock complete refinish where I do string trees, tuners, nut. I'll probably also do a tremolo upgrade as well. I've got a new tremolo that I want to try. So the first step in any build, at least an upgrade, is going to be disassembly of your original parts. I've been asked in some of my recent comments to show all my steps, so we're going to show the disassembly and go from there. The first step in disassembly is getting rid of these strings. Now normally you might be tempted to just cut these off, and that is fine. These happen to look like they've got enough life left in them that I might be able to use them for a setup project in the future, so I'm going to try to save them. You'd be surprised how much value you can get out of a used string if you do a lot of guitar setups, especially if you just need to replace one string and you might have a usable one available. I'm going to take the rest of these off camera. All I do is straighten out the tuner end, pull it through the bridge. I just don't want to do a lot of video editing on the back end, so I am going to skip that step. Alright, with the strings off, what do you want to disassemble next? Well, I actually am going to take the neck off of this body. I don't always do that, but I'm going to do that because I've got a couple of those typical finish cracks in the neck pocket area, and I just want to make sure that they're just finish cracks and that they don't go into the body itself. I also kind of am interested in whether or not this is a plywood body. I assume it's not, but I always look for that. So we'll take these screws out here in the neck first. Okay, well there's no cracks here in the neck pocket, so I can move on and use this as my base for my project. I'm going to remove the jack next, so these screws have to come out next. And in order for this wire to pass through the cavity here, I've got to do a little bit of desoldering. Then we can remove the pick guard. You know what, I just thought of it while I was doing this. I'm going to do one other thing, and that's desolder the bridge wire before I completely remove the pick guard. Now we finish the pick guard, and it comes out in one piece. Now just for the sake of documentation, I do want to see what's in here. So I've got these double ceramic bar magnets. I've got a pretty standard humbucker. I see these on Amazon sometimes. And then I've got mini pots and one of those PC board, breadboard style switches. Looks like, oh interesting, the cap on these is a 0.033 microfarad and the pots are 500K. So if you ever wondered what the values were in an HSS Strat, that's what they are on this one. A quick point about upgrades that I want to make is that upgrades are kind of expensive in a way, and you're not always going to get the value back out of the upgrades when you sell the guitar. So one way that you can help offset the cost of your upgrades is to sell some of your original parts. Now I wouldn't do this on a guitar that I definitely want to put back to original someday that's got some collector value, but on a standard run-of-the-mill guitar where you're going to be able to find these original parts again someday if you ever want them, you can safely get rid of these things. I guess there's another side of that coin, and that's that if you ever want to remove your upgraded parts and sell those one day, you'll want to keep your original parts. But just a point about that, you can use the sale of original parts to help fund your upgrades if you want. Alright, well since I've got a tremolo upgrade planned, I'm going to remove it now. That's going to start with the springs first. And you don't have to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and remove the claw. And then the tremolo screws themselves can come out. Last thing I'll do, I'll go ahead and take off the strap buttons. If nothing else, I'll replace the washers later and make them look better. Alright, that's the entire body. Let's go ahead and do the neck. Start with string trees and the tuners. These tuners do not have any screws on the back. All right, well, I've got a lot of parts to clean up here, so I'm going to get these cleaned up and organized, and then we'll start some upgrades. So the first upgrade I'm going to start on is the set of tuners. And we talked about how this guitar had the Squier 2-post tuners that don't have screws in the back. And I was thinking about what I wanted to use to upgrade. And I had a set of Fender 2-post tuners in my parts bin, but unfortunately the posts on the Fender are not the same location as the posts of the Squiers, so we've got to fill these holes and re-drill. So I've been doing a little testing about how that's going to go, and it's been going quite well, so I'll show you the process on the rest of these. Basically what I've been doing is I've been enlarging these holes to 1/8 of an inch, putting a dowel in there with some wood glue, cutting them off, filling up the hole or anything that's left over with super glue, leveling everything off, re-drilling, and then I've installed one tuner so far just as a test, but it's working out quite well. Now, I've shown different dowel rods in the past, and a lot of times I'll use a birch dowel rod or poplar dowel rod or whatever they happen to have in the store, but I have been trying a different sort of dowel rod recently, and it's been working out pretty well. I've been using these skewers that are actually meant for food, and you can buy them in a bag for real cheap. I can't remember how many I got in a bag, but for a couple dollars you can buy a bunch of them and cut them off and make yourself just a little piece like that. They work pretty well. They match the color of maple really nicely. The only real difference between them and any other dowel is the end grain is a lot more obvious on the bamboo. It looks kind of spotty, and so you can really see it. So if you're trying to hide a repair, they're not that good, but if you're just trying to fix some structure, they seem pretty good at that. All right, so let me go ahead and show you the process here with these last 4 holes. So step 1 is going to be to use about an 1/8 inch drill bit, and truth be told, I'm using a number 31 drill bit because it's just a bit smaller and a little bit closer to the actual size of the dowel. Now you can tell I didn't take these holes any deeper. I was just letting the drill bit fall down into the bottom of the hole and then taking it back out. It really did not add much width at all, so you can see there's not very many shavings. It's just to clean up the hole. I don't want to make them any bigger than I have to, and it allows me to make the dowel rod fit tightly. All right, so let's go ahead and get these in the hole. So I always used to use a piece of scrap paper. That's why there's writing on it. We'll set up some glue on here. Take a toothpick that's less diameter than the hole, put a little bit of glue in the hole itself, roll a dowel rod in the glue, and get it started in the hole. And then I'll use a little hammer to tap it the rest of the way in if it's not going in all the way. And then I'll leave them to set up. I'm going to take a still shot so you can see these better, and my air conditioner has just decided to kick on, so I'm going to have to do the rest of these off camera. But all I'm doing is gluing and doweling the holes, and we'll come back when I'm ready to cut them off. Okay, well, after these have been drying for about 30 minutes or so, you can start to cut them off. I actually broke this one off earlier when I was hammering, and these two I've already cut off because I realized my camera wasn't rolling when I did these two. But at any rate, the process is really easy. You use a razor blade to basically score them around the surface of the headstock. Just get down low, make a little score on each side, and then they should snap off. Once you get them cut off, take a razor blade that's got some tape wrapped around the edges, and then just kind of scrape the very tops to make them level with the surface. And the reason for the tape is so that you don't mess up the finish of the wood anywhere else on the headstock. Now to finish them off, I'm going to use thin super glue and a little pipette, or you can use a little tube of super glue if that's easier for you. And I just want to put a dot of super glue over the end grain of each one of these and let them soak in. As the super glue soaks in, just kind of keep going back over until you get a little bit of buildup on the surface. Then you'll let these set up and dry, and then we'll do the same scraping thing that I did with the razor blade earlier, scrape them off flush, and then they'll be ready to re-drill. All right, well, now that these are cleaned up, let me get something to set under the headstock. I've been experimenting with a number of ways to get the tuner holes drilled. I've got a way that works. I first tried just setting the tuner on here, putting a wood block on top of it, giving it a little tap with a hammer and making some indentations. Then I use those as sort of a pilot hole for my drill. but I didn't like the possibility of damaging the tuner, and luckily I didn't, but it just felt like I might. So what I did instead on this set of holes was I held up the tuner and I marked from the side where I saw the posts hitting the face of the board. Then I took a little square, extended that line all the way across, and then I sort of did the same thing. I sighted where the pins landed this way and made little marks that way. And so I've made these little cross hatches on these other 4. That's what I'm using as my guides. And I'll just take a little punch, a little center punch like this, make a divot here, and then I'll go ahead and drill. Okay, well ultimately that's going to work out pretty well. And here's the view from the front with the tuners fully tightened up. And I actually went ahead and filled the holes for the string trees. Don't have the string trees just yet, so we'll do that next time. Thank you all for hanging out for part 1 of this series. I hope you all hang around for part 2, and remember to subscribe if you want the notification for that. Thank you all for the likes and the comments. I appreciate you all checking out my Amazon links, and I'll see you guys next time.